it's an honor to be here because we're just in the midst of giants, like spiritual giants, and it's an honor, such an honor. I get the privilege of talking about systems that work, and they gave me this topic, and I was like, haven't I talked about this enough? But I want to start by just beginning with a little bit of my story. Some of you are aware, some of you might not be aware, but it's such a privilege to be part of the Victory Movement and to be, have Pastor George and Hazel as our apostolic leaders, because they believe in people at another level that I haven't seen. I mean, they're truly what Paul describes in Corinthians. And you got lots of teachers who can't wait to tell you what you're doing wrong, but you don't have many fathers and mothers that'll help you and take the time to help you grow up. And Pastor George's famous, statement is, "Yeah, give it a go." And he gave it a go. He took a big risk on a young worship leader. I was 23 by 2 weeks, just turned 23 when I was handed my first church and became the senior pastor of the church in Canmore. And I always swore, I grew up I was like, I'll do anything for you, Lord, except pastor. That was my deal, and that's how God works. And when I started pastoring in Canmore, we pastored in Canmore for 10 years. And Canmore, you guys will pass on the way to Banff. It's in the mountain community. It's a beautiful community. Everybody's like, wouldn't it be awesome to live there? It'd be so beautiful to live there. Yeah, it was beautiful to look at the mountains. The people were nuts. Just it's a different community altogether. Like, there's something when you get higher elevations, you get to mountain climates, the air is thinner. I'm not, like, I could tell you story after story after story of preaching in services and having a witch sit with a raven on her shoulder 3 rows back, casting spells on me while I'm preaching. And the usher's looking at me going, "Do you want us to get her out?" And I'm like, "No, she's hearing the gospel. Let's just let her." I mean, just crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. But one of the things that happened in Canmore, the 10 years in Canmore was my education. So some of you went through Bible school quick. It took me 10 years to go through Bible school to learn how to pastor and figure all this out and what mistakes. I made a ton of mistakes and didn't know. But one of the things that I learned in Canmore is a very transient community. And you're pastoring a small church is, to me, like, those of you who are pastoring small churches, you're my heroes. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I spent 10 years doing it. The hardest church to pastor on the planet is the one under 100. Because you have to do everything. And you're the one relied on for everything. And you're like, it's a big deal. It's the hardest church to grow. It's the hardest because when one family leaves, it's devastating, and you've got all, I mean, it's incredible. And when we worked hard in Canmore to grow churches and worked hard in growth principles and applied all the things, and our church would start to grow. And then every single summer, without exception, like the average was over the 10 years, every single summer we had, on average, 80 people move away out of the city. It was just a transient city, and move away. And every single summer I'd had to start all over again with new staff members, with new board members. I think I had one board member that lasted, for 5 years. That was a record every other time, and you're starting all over again. So that means all of your ministries start all over again. You'd have a children's ministry and just start cooking. You got a good leader. And then, Pastor, we're moving. And I remember one time sitting in my office, and I was my head on my desk, and I'm crying, and I'm like, "God, I can't take this anymore. I can't handle one more thing," because I just had a whole bunch of people move away, and I was like, I'm having to start all over again. I can't get traction. I had something different in my heart than what I'm seeing. This is one of the things about leaders. What we see every Sunday is an opportunity to be discouraged, because what you see in the chairs is different than what you see in your heart. Doesn't matter how big your church is. Right? So you have these battles, and then I'm like, "God, I can't do this anymore," and the phone rings. "Hey, Pastor Kelly," it's my youth pastor. "I don't know how to tell you this, but we're moving." I was like, "Of course you are." I was like, "When?" "Friday." I was like, "It's Tuesday." "Where are you moving?" "We're moving to Nova Scotia." Friday? Like this Friday? This Friday. I hung with the phone and just started laughing. I guess I can take more. Like I was just like, and so what did we have to do? So I wrestled for years on this and going, you start and then you'd stop. And then you'd start and then you'd stop. And I was like, God, there's got to be a way. And I wrestled with what's the answer, what's the answer, what's the answer, what's the answer. And I read a business book. I know someone handed it to me. And in the business book, I'm reading through this, and it was talking about these franchises and how these guys would franchise. And it talks about in franchises how they created these systems that an employee could come in and just pick up things. And I jumped up. I was reading a Sunday afternoon, laying on the couch reading, and my wife's having a nap. And I jumped up and I startled her. Jumped up and was like, that's it. And that was the birth of me becoming an avid learner of and working on systems. And because I thought for the longest time, systems and church and Holy Spirit they don't work. Systems is for the business world. The church doesn't do this. But then I realized that the purpose of systems is actually, it enables you to take care of people a lot more effectively. And I also realized that the thing that was going to keep my church from, and gaining momentum was when I had people leave, if I had systems in place. And so I went in, started creating binders. So the children's ministry, I said, I want you to record everything you're teaching all the time and put it in a binder and all the rest of it. And so when you leave, and they're like, well, I'm not leaving, Pastor. I was like, yes, you will. When you leave, you can hand it off to the next one. And we did that. And all of a sudden the church began to have consistent growth. Right? Because we didn't have to stop anymore. And they'd hand off to somebody else. And I was like, and there was clarity in going, this is how we do things around here. And which is culture, by the way. That's just a simple answer. This is how we do things around here. And we just started, and all of a sudden we started having consistent growth and happening because there was clarity. So I want to give you a little bit of background because how I came across, what we look at, and people often look at what we do, and they're like, wow, there's a system to that. Yeah, there is. And the reason why I did that is because I saw it working in a place, in a small church, and we started seeing consistent growth and happening, and it worked in Okotoks, and we started planting. And when I remember saying to my wife 5 years into our plant in Okotoks, we have the same leaders. This is new. This is crazy. We got the same team. I mean, this is amazing. And how much they've grown because and how much the church grew. And it's worked for us in Lethbridge, and able to come into Lethbridge and see a lot of this stuff and work on systems. And some of you experienced that, it's systems and what you look at and going, man, you guys are doing this, and this is taken care of, and this is happening, all the rest of it, and going, yeah, there's systems that enable you to take care of people more effectively. So what I want to do in the session today is there's a couple things that I just want to highlight and go through. And then with systems, if you're taking notes, we'll fill in the blanks in a second, but systems have to be simple. Okay, this is key. The hardest thing to do, the easiest thing to do is to create a complicated system, to be honest. And we like to make things complicated and detailed, and you administrators are notorious for that. You can't miss a step. You're not going to want to miss a step, so don't miss a step. So you're going to fill in all the steps. It's okay to not have a complete system. You just need to have a simple system, okay? And we'll get to that in a moment. Systems need to be clear to the congregation, not just to you. Okay, so as leaders, we've got a clear system in here, but if the congregation doesn't know, you don't have a system. Okay, the congregation needs to know. So how do we educate? How do we talk about? How do we communicate? How do we work that? And we're going to talk that in a second. And then since systems must answer what's next. Okay, because here's the key about systems. Because we get, and I'm going to try to break this down as simply as I possibly can. Systems are all about creating movement. Okay, so where there is a stoppage in movement, there's a breakdown in a system. Okay, so if you have a lot of people coming into your church, but they're not staying, you have a systems problem. There's a breakdown. If you don't have a lot of visitors coming into your church, you have a systems problem. There's a stoppage of movement. There's a breakdown. If you have lots of visitors coming into your church and they stay, but they don't ever get committed and connected to the next level, you have a systems problem. Wherever there's a stoppage of movement, you have a systems problem. Okay, so systems are all about movement. Now, what I want to do in the time I have left is we're going to break this down, and we're just going to go I'm going to teach, and I'm going to do some drawings for you, because I think better on paper and work this, and this is just how I like to teach, is just kind of work it through with me. But what I want to do is I want to teach all of us pastors, and I think last night kind of proved that I was on the right track when I was talking about systems, because I've given you guys lots of teachings over the year, different conferences on different systems. What I want to do is I want to walk you through how to have a meeting with your 6 to 12 key leaders. Okay, so I just want to walk through. This is what we want. We want to take 6 to 12 of your key leaders. You don't want to go bigger than 12. You're not going to have a lot of discussion. You don't want to probably go any smaller than 6, because you're not going to have enough ideas, enough variety of input. So you want to have about 6 to 12 of the most influential people. I'm not talking staff. I'm talking volunteers. I'm talking whatever it might be. Talking people that are passionate about your church, connected to your church. How to have a meeting with 6 to 12 people. And this is how you communicate from the big thing. And the reason why last night affirmed that this was right is because when Pastor Paul said, how many of you feel and sense transition? Man, 3/4 of the room stands up. So this is the meeting that we just had with our campus pastors and our 6 to 12 things. And we went through this step by step and went through this and we're going because we're re-clarifying and sensing something is shifting. And we're not sure what it is, but we need to talk through this again so that we're on the same page and clear. Because if you don't talk about this stuff regularly, and saying, well, we already done this, we already know this. If you don't talk about this stuff regularly, okay, it's easy to add on and to become more complicated. And sometimes you need to have these communications to strip back, to keep it simple, to keep it clear, to keep it on the same page. Okay, so this is the stages of how to design clarity, which is what we want, that everybody in the church is on the same page, and then we can add clarity to our systems, and then we work on implementation. So number one, and these are in the list of priority. Number one is, the first blank is mission. Okay, so we need to define in a clear way what our mission is. Mission is why we exist. Okay, so our mission is the reason our church exists. It will never be fully accomplished, but it is what we're striving to do. Okay, so I'm going to fill in the blank for you on this one. And I just say this with our church all the time. Let's not get creative on this one. Let's not reinvent the wheel on this one. Jesus gave us the mission. Hello. 2,000 years ago, it's called the Great Commission. Okay, the Great Commission. Commission, that's the great cooperative mission. It doesn't matter what denomination you're in, what style of church you're in. Doesn't matter. If you're part of Big C Church, you have already been given the mission to go into all the world, right? Make disciples, preach the gospel, lay hands on the sick. I mean, it's to make disciples. That one is written in stone. I told our staff we're not changing that. We're not going to get more creative on that. Jesus said, go and make disciples. And it also the mission. Why do we exist? Well, we exist to go make disciples. Right? And will it ever be fully accomplished? It will never be fully accomplished. We've been doing, but that's our mission. That drives our why. That's why we exist. That's why we open up our church doors. And we don't open up our church doors to entertain Christians. Right? To keep Christians happy. We're on a mission. That's our mission, to make disciples of all men, to preach the gospel, right? So that's our mission. So that one's settled. So then you go to number 2 is the vision. Now, what does it look like to win? And here's what's interesting, is Church Fuel says this about a vision. Our vision is what it looks like when we're living on mission, and it will be accomplished by a specific date. Okay, now, for those of you who've been in Victory Movement for a period of time, do you remember the vision that we had in the 90s in Victory churches? Do you remember? Pastor George would say it at every single conference. We're going to have 2,000 churches by 2,000, right? It was a very, very clear vision, right? Because it had a specific date. It had a specific number attached with a specific date. Okay, so this is one, by the way, that you and your leadership, this is why you don't want to do this by yourself. This is why you want 6 to 12 of your key leaders to communicate, because what you want to do is, in order to define your vision as a church, please don't stand up and saying, this is our vision, yea, follow me, and expect everyone's going to follow. Because you're going to do what John Maxwell says, you're going to lead and no one's going to be following, and you're merely taking a walk. So you want to get everybody on the same page, and you want them to be a part of creating what that vision is. Not just telling them what the vision is. You can lead them in that discussion, but you want their consensus. And here's how you define a vision, according to Andy Stanley, and I love this definition. If you haven't read Visioneering and you don't understand how to formulate a vision, read the book Visioneering. It's amazing. It's a Bible study basically through Nehemiah, but it's amazing how it lays out what a vision is and how to do it. But here's kind of 4 main keys from that. He says a vision is a problem to solve. Okay, so you have to start with a problem, right? So sometimes we come up and we cast vision and we give the solution before we've ever defined the problem. When you're casting a vision, you have to define the problem first in order to get people to passionately buy into the vision. Then number 2 is a consensus solution. So this is why you want 6 to 12 consensus solutions. So the discussions we have is, what problem is our church called to solve? Okay, what problem in Lethbridge is our church called to solve? What problem in Okotoks is our church called to solve? What problem in your community does your church exist? You're not going to solve all the problems in the community, but you're going to pick 1 or 2, like say, what problem are we called as a church, as a Victory Church, what problem are we called to solve? Okay, and clearly define that problem. This is us. This is the problem we're going to solve. Okay, then we say the consensus solution. What's the solution to that problem? Okay, so the reason why we said no perfect people, okay, is because one of the problems we're called to solve in the Lethbridge area, Lethbridge, if you know the history of it all, it's a very, very religious area, a very religious community. It's got, the Mormons have a stronghold there, the Dutch Reform are very strong there, the Mennonites are very strong there. So there is a ton of people who grew up in religion and want nothing to do with God, nothing to do with church, because they've been told all their entire life what's wrong with them, why they fall short, why they don't measure up, why the church is judging them, and the hope. And I came into the community, I was like, man, this is a big issue. So we started talking about what problem is there to solve. Well, there's disenfranchised people who aren't disenfranchised with God necessarily, but they've linked him, maybe if they are, they've linked him with something that the church has been telling them where they don't measure up. So we just said no perfect people, because we're like, and people come in just because they see that sign, because they're like, man, you're not going to judge me here. I'm open to having a relationship with God now because we had a discussion about what problem do we feel like we're called to solve. And then what's our consensus solution? Then you have to ask, why us? Okay, so why is it, there's not every problem is yours to solve. Okay, so why us? And then the 4th one is why now? Okay, not every problem, not every vision is meant to be solved now. Sometimes God gives you vision. You're visionaries, God's speaking to you and you're being led by the Holy Spirit. Sometimes the vision God puts in your heart is for years from now. It's not for now, it's for years from now. And you got to ask, when God tells you to do something, you need to ask him timing as much as anything. Is this now? Is this later? Is there something you need to prepare me for? Is there now? So that's kind of so have those questions with your team and walk through the vision. Then number 3 is you want to have values. Okay, you want to talk about your values. What do we value? Another way to say this is culture. Okay, and culture happens by default, or it happens by design. Your church has a culture already, okay? And your everything has a culture. Every business has a culture. Every home has a culture. There's a big difference in Tim Hortons culture from Starbucks culture. If I was to, ask you, who do you see? What's the clientele you'd expect, walk into a Tim Hortons? Can you describe the clientele for me that you see? right? And they would describe Pastor Nathan, and no, just kidding. They would, yeah, right? I've never seen you at a Starbucks. I saw a picture online, though. Anyway. Okay. Right, but there's a clientele that you expect to see at a Tim Hortons, but if you go into Starbucks, what do you expect to see? A whole lot of Apple computers. Right? You expect to see Dion, yep. Okay? Okay, so there's a difference, and that's a culture. So your church has a culture, so you need to, it happens by default or happens by design. It's better to design it. So these are the values that you want to have. So the values are, how do we behave? This is how we do things around here. This is just how we do things around here. We're Victory Church. This is how we do things around here. How do we behave? Okay, values are like core beliefs. You should only have 3 to 5 of them. They can be single words or simple statements. You want to keep them simple because simple is portable. Okay, it's memorable. You want people to be able to repeat them because you're designing kind of the culture, the behavior that you want to have. Okay, number 4, okay, is strategy. Okay, what is our strategy? These are all, and by the way, these meetings with your 6 to 12 people, if you can see this already just by going through the first 4, this is not a 1-hour meeting. This is probably go away somewhere for 2-3 days and pray through and talk through and wrestle through. But I'm telling you, if you do this, the clarity it's going to bring to your entire church, the passion of which they're going to walk out of that room and begin to implement and go to work with is going to be amazing. Okay, it's so worth it. You'll fast forward your church years by just going through this kind of a meeting. Okay? Strategies. This is where we start talking about systems. Okay, so how will we win? This is the how. We've talked about the why. We've talked about the what. Okay, we've talked about our values. Okay, but this is strategy, how we will win. You should be able to sketch your strategy on the back of a napkin. It's got to be simple. You got to be able to share it. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And I'll walk through some of that in the way. But a strategy, in essence, is you're going to answer this way. What's the best way to? Fill in the blank. What's the best way to accomplish our problem, the solution to the problem? What's the best way to act out these core values? What's the best way to? And I love that phrase because it's what's the best way. My favorite part of the Victory Vision, by the way, is reach every available person by every available means. I love the flexibility of that. And I think the greatest strength of Victory Church is that we're different. We're unique. That allows us to use our gifts as pastors, and we don't have to be a carbon copy of one another because our gifts are all different, and we can use different means. Amen? We can use different means, and guess what? The means in Lethbridge aren't going to be the same means in Calgary, aren't going to be the same means in Barrie, aren't going to be the same means in Honolulu, although I'd like to try that. One day, Lord. Anyway, those are, I like that mean. So what's the best way to? And the word about that phrase is what's the best. If you find a better way, change it. Your mission is written in Scripture, don't change it. Your vision is written, it's chiseled that you don't want to change that too much. But when we get down to the strategy, you're going to find a better way, we're going to change. Okay, so these are where we can bring change. Number 5, we're going to go through this quickly, and then I'm going to just make this as clear as we can by drawing. Number 5, ministries. Okay, ministries. What do we do? List all of your regular programs and ministries. Now listen, when you list your ministries, the most effective churches, and I'm an avid studier of churches of all kinds. I love the church. And I want to know. If somebody's doing something that's working, I want to know. I want to figure it out. I want to humble myself, and I want to go. If there's a better way, I want to find it. Like, it's all about souls. It's not about my preferences. It's about soul. I want to find a better way. So in ministries, what I've discovered in studying churches around the world, the most effective churches around the world have 4 to 6 ministries they focus on. Okay? If you get so complicated and so diluted, man, I remember being a part of going to a church, not a Victory church, but one of my travels, I went to this church, Friends of Victory, and went to this church, and they handed me a bulletin. It was a small church of about, 80 to 100 people. Handed me a bulletin. The bulletin was 4 pages long, and it was Monday was, a church of 80 people. Monday had 4 Bible studies. Tuesday had, 6 meetings, and Wednesday had, 5 other meetings, and, Thursday had, it was like reading this long menu of all the different meetings in small groups. So I asked the pastor, I was like, how's the attendance going with all of these meetings? Oh, we can't get people to come up. I was like, people are burnt out. How's soul winning going? Well, yeah, nobody has friends with any of the unchurched because they're at all these meetings. All right, so simple programs. What do? Do what you do well. Okay, so what do? We do Sunday morning. That's program number 1. Okay, we do music. My history is music. My background is music. So if your church's strength is not music, for goodness sakes, don't extend your worship. If we go longer, maybe our God will show up. Anyway. Right? No. Listen, if that's not your strength, then don't extend it. Children's ministry should be a focused, right? Those are 3. If you do those 3 small groups, there's a 4th one. Okay, because we're going to be the net. We're all the rest of it. After that, everything else, in my opinion, is optional. If you focus just on those 4, you can grow a church. If you start adding this ministry and this ministry and this ministry and this ministry and this ministry, now you're diluting all of your talent, all of your energy, all your time, all your resources. Everything's and you're not going to be able to do. If you do all things mediocre instead of a few things well. So you want to list what's our focus, what's our priorities. Let's talk this through. Number 6, our target. Who are we trying to reach? While our church should be open to everyone, it's often helpful to think about the person or group of people we're trying to reach. Okay, what demographic, what age group, what's the nature of the people in our community that we're trying to reach? What are other churches doing well, and what area is not being reached? Let's just target. We're going to reach everybody. We want to reach everybody, but let's target who we're trying to reach. Number 7, metrics. Metrics. What are we going to measure? Okay, you cannot manage what you don't measure. Okay, so you have to measure. Every senior pastor, church leader, and organization should keep tabs on key metrics and numbers. Well, it's not just about the numbers. No, each number represents a person. Okay? If you don't count your attendance, because it's not about numbers, you'll have what Pastor Charlotte is talking about is people will drift away and you didn't even notice. But what triggered her question is, how come we had all these people coming, these new people coming in, but our numbers haven't gone up? That triggered a further investigation, which is what metrics does. Okay, something's going on, which triggered a further investigation, which then she found individuals that are like, oh, they drifted away. How we didn't see this? Well, it was triggered by metrics. Okay, so we think it's not spiritual to count. If it's not spiritual to count, why do we know every single meeting Jesus had, how many were there? Somebody in Jesus' ministry was counting. There was 5,000, feeding of the 5,000, the feeding of the 3,000. There was 120 in the upper room. There was 70. Every meeting he had, somebody was. So if numbers don't count, come on. Somebody was counting. Okay, so we got to count. Now here, I want to help you with this. So decide what you're going to measure and consistently look at the real numbers. Can I help you? I want to help you. This is what we discovered. We started researching all around and going, okay, let's talk about what measuring. Here's what we found. Hillsong Network does a great research. Tom Rainer does a whole bunch of great research. But they're talking about, okay, and all these different researches, and these guys are researching churches, and they're effective. And they start talking about what their targets are in the measurements. And I want to give you some of the targets that we've discovered and that we've started using. So you're going to want to write this down. Here's some of the things. We want to measure attendance. And this is what they said. A healthy church, this is what Hillsong says, a healthy church should see a minimum of 7% growth annually. Okay, a healthy church should see a minimum of 7% growth per year, minimum. So if your church is 100, how many should you grow by in your average attendance? 7 people, okay? So your church is 50, you can grow by 3.5. So you can have a baby in there somewhere. But I'm just kidding. But you should see a minimum of 7% if you're healthy. So a lot of times, this helps with the comparison, doesn't it? Some of the churches, we going, like, helps with the comparison, going, well, how come we didn't see? Listen, the church at our size, 7% is a whole lot different, okay, than the church of 50. But a healthy, it's a challenge, right? Because that 7% becomes, whoa, right? And you want to see it. So 7% is that puts a little bit of pressure on Pastor Rich. Right? So it puts pressure, and I got to adjust and look. It's different. So you look at, but a healthy church, and saying, is our church healthy and growing? If you've seen a 7% increase in a year, then you're saying, yeah, we're on track, we're moving, we're growing. This is good. Number 2 is salvations. Okay? This is Tom Rainer's stat. You should see 12 salvations per year per 100 in attendance. Okay, for a healthy church that is focused on the lost. And I think as Victory Churches, because our vision is reach every available person, we could increase that. Okay, we set a target in Lethbridge of 55% of our regular attendance. We've been maintaining 55% of our annual attendances in salvations in a year, right? We've been maintaining that for 8 years. But 12 salvations per year per 100 in attendance. Okay, it's just a good guidelines. Baptisms, you should see 10% of your total adult attendance you should see in baptisms per year, if you're healthy. Follow-up engagement. Okay, you should see 50% second engagements. What I mean, okay, second engagement, if you have a newcomer coming in to your church and you get a connect card or you find a way to get their information, you should then engage them with a follow-up email or a follow-up phone call, whatever. And if you send an email and they respond back, that counts that's a follow-up engagement. So you should see healthy churches to maintain, Hillsong says this, healthy churches, if you're going to see effective follow-up, you'll maintain that 7% growth if you get 50% of your visitors that respond back. In that, you should see 50% of them responding back, and you'll maintain 7% growth. Okay? All right. Then we get weekly giving per person. Okay? Hillsong says $20 per person per week. Okay, Tom Rainer says in the States it's $29 per person per week, so it's in there, but for a healthy, per person per week, $20 a head, that's man, woman, child, okay, per person per week is giving. Metrics, number 6 is active in small groups. They say, again, Hillsong says 50% of youth and adults of average attendance is healthy in that, right? I think Andy Stanley's church is 90% of his church is active in small groups. Okay, the bigger your church, I think the higher that percentage has to go because you're going to have people drift out. Okay, in small groups. Active volunteers, you want to have 1 volunteer per 7 attendees is healthy. Okay, 1 volunteer per 7 attendees. Okay, another metric is kids should be about, if you're a healthy church growing, should be 20% of your attendance. Okay, should be kids. 20% of your attendance. Now that changes in a town like Okotoks where you have everybody has kids. Everybody has kids. That changes, but there's other towns. But yeah, a healthy church, if you're growing and generational, should be average. 20% of your attendance should be kids. Your youth group, okay, grades 6 to 12 should be 9% of your attendance. Okay, youth group should be 9% of your attendance. Now, does this help? This helped us because we're like, okay, now how do we judge? Because if we measure now in some of these areas, how do we judge? Are we healthy? Are we growing? Setting these percentages kind of helps in some of the metrics of what you're measuring and going, are we healthy? Are we not? And this is why, because we can say just because our attendance, if you just measure attendance, that's not a true indicator of health. Yeah, that's right. So you want to measure more than that. All right, 8 is teams. Teams. What volunteer teams will help us win? Okay, so group your volunteers into teams so you can provide care and information. So group your team. So an example of grouping is we group our coffee team, our ushers, and our greeters into one team we call the host team. That's just a grouping. It's just the hosting. What's your job? Your job is to host everybody coming in, right? So that's just kind of an example of grouping. We grouped our youth and our children's into family ministries and saying your job is to pastor families with students, right? So it's kind of just what teams. So you got to say, okay, what's our teams? What are we recruiting for? Be clear on your teams. Number 9, people. Okay, who's on our staff? Describe roles and goals for each team member. Okay, fill it, put in the org chart like what was taught earlier, and fill in the blanks. Okay, and put job descriptions for that. It helps you pick the right people for the right job. Okay, and make sure that you have the right people in the right position. And a great resource out there is the Vanderblumen group out of the States. Has actually taken the 16 personalities, the Myers-Briggs test, and they've actually taken each personality, and they've listed the jobs in the church that fit each personality the best, which is very helpful. All right, so people, number 10 is meetings. Okay, when will we gather? Who comes to what meetings, and what is their purpose? Many churches only meet in response to issues. Okay, that's leading with reaction rather than leading with vision. We want to lead with vision. Let's be more intentional of that. So, these 10 things, go in order, and you start talking through these things and defining. Okay, our mission, that's defined. Let's talk through our vision. Okay, what's our vision? What's the problem we're called to solve? You start talking through some of these things, and you lay it all out, and it brings clarity because there's ownership from everybody in to the whole thing. Now, I just want the drawing I want to do for you. I just want to show you just example of how to do a system. And if you turn to page 3 on your thing, Pastor Dan included this already in there. Some Rick Warren's circles. You've seen a purpose-driven church. I'll do my best job of drawing circles. It gets scarier. One more. Okay, so he talks about, and page 3 has this drawing. So here it talks about the community. So this is what I highly encourage you to do with your teams. You're talking through strategies and saying, okay, community is, what do we define community? For us, we defined anything within a 20-mile radius of people who don't attend church. We define that as our community. That's our reachable point from Lethbridge, from each Claire's home, from Okotoks. That's a reachable point. So let's define how many is that? Right? Who are we? That's our target, who we're trying to reach. Then we defined and said, okay, well, the next is the crowd. Okay, what's the crowd? Well, we said the crowd is the community who visits our church. Okay, so how many visitors do you know? This is kind of the metrics. When you're going, how many visitors do we have in a year? I don't know. I don't know. How do we find that out? Well, you should be able to find a way to measure that. How do we get the metrics of this thing to measure how many visitors we have in a year? Because if we don't measure it, we don't know if we're stopped attracting or we didn't stop attracting. We just go by, well, it feels like. Okay, then you're walking blind because our feelings are very fickle, aren't they, as pastors? Right? How many visitors? If we don't have visitors, then we got a problem, right? So then you got to define, this is kind of the thing, then you got to define, okay, well, what's our congregation? Well, congregation, what does that count? Does that count, does that count the regular attenders, or how much do we determine as regular? And then we count, so what do we determine as our congregation? We determined ours was going to be, okay, well, our average attendance is our congregation. Okay, then we said, okay, well, what's the committed? What is that definition? What do we consider committed versus what do we consider core? Okay? So what is the definition? What is core? So our core leaders are what? I like what Pastor Rich and Ing were saying. Like, if you're not part of a small group, you're not on stage. So they've defined right there. They've thought this through, and they defined that part of our core, part of our core has to be involved in a small group, or be leading a small group. And so you go, okay, so what do we want? When you define this, you're laying out all this kind of stuff. Now, a system is creating movement. So a system is, how do we create movement from the community to the first-time visitor? Okay, because if this number is not going up, there's a blockage in the system somewhere, and we got a systems problem, and we're going to find a better way to reach. Make sense? What's our system, okay, or program to get the visitors to become part of the congregation? Okay, what's the system? Okay, is that small groups? Is that volunteering? Is that, what's the system? What's the program? Then what's the system, okay, to get the congregation to become the committed? Okay, so if they're not getting active, what do we want them to be able to do? How are we going to get them to volunteer, be a part of small groups, whatever that might be? And then what's the system from here to becoming part of the core? Okay, then we have to look at it saying, you take a drawing like this, and you walk through and say, well, what's our vision? Well, our vision is to do this. What's our strategy? What's our strategy? And you start laying out all these strategies. What's our programs? What ministries are we going to do, okay, that are going to define? And don't put 5 steps in between each one. Put 1 to 3 at max in each one, and make it crystal clear so that everybody knows, okay, well, in order to go to the next level, we're doing this, and we're reaching this way, and we're following up this way, and we're asking for commitment this way, and we're part of a core. We're pulling people in the core, and we're training leaders this way, and we begin to define what each one of these stages are. Now you have a system that works. Yeah. Does this make sense? Okay, so that's part of systems that work, and asking the questions. But I'd highly encourage you to have a meeting like that, to take 2, 3, 4 days, whatever it might be. Get in a place and lock yourself in a room, and then talk with your team and let them talk. Don't just come up with ideas, but let them talk and bring in research and come in with all this kind of stuff to make the systems work. Awesome. Pastor Hazel.